everyone, welcome to part 1 of our Fujimi 1/16 Koenig Lamborghini Countach video build. I reviewed this kit, I think it was about a week ago, and said it was going to be my next build, and here we are. We've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of prep to get this to paint, a lot of fettling and filling about getting all those wheel arches in place, which I knew when I took the build on, but it's still quite surprising just how much work it took. A good few hours, so it's quite a long video, this one. But it does explain how I went about everything and test fitted and cut things to fit, glued them in place. So you may find it interesting, you may not. But anyway, let's jump straight in and get started with the build. Hey everyone, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, get notified of our latest videos, give the video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and leave a comment. I do read and appreciate every comment you guys and girls leave behind. I may not reply to them all, but they are all appreciated. And there's a link in the description of the video that takes you to a big long list of all handy videos and a lot of the products I use in my videos. You now have the chance to support the video content creation by using Patreon or the PayPal me link in the description down below. All the videos will always remain free to watch. This is just your chance to help support the videos. Right then, so as said, I got a full review of this kit on the channel a week or so ago. So if you go through and have a look, it's a full look at everything in the kit. All the instructions, the decals, all the parts, quite in depth. But very quickly, we've got some pictures of the box, some information there about the car, the dimensions. So if you want to read those, you can pause it and have a read. Great box art on the front of this. Beautiful looking car, and probably the real choice of colour for me. I went for it. But multitude of sprues. I think it's about 11 coloured white, black, grey sprues. Couple of chrome, the clear parts, the body shell. We've got a bag including the tyres, some screws, the wires for the HT leads, the solid axle, and some springs for the suspension as well. Like I say, several chrome parts in there. The wheels look pretty decent. We may well keep those as they are. Tyres look okay. And of course the obligatory HT wire, which is actually quite nice quality on these kits. Quite handy to use and save. On our body shell. So we need to be aware of those A-pillars. They're going to be very easily broken if we're not careful. Few seam lines to remove, not too bad. But the most important thing in this kit is getting all the panels to fit. So we've got a lot of preparation to do on this. So it's about 20 minutes before we even get anywhere near paint, because we need to make sure everything fits. Now the common areas on these Fujimi 16 scale kits is the doors. The window surround pillars don't often fit. They normally stick out, so they're going to need some correction. And the way I do that is grip it, get a bit of heat into it with your finger, and don't bend it, just manipulate it to kind of stretch the plastic. If you put too much on, you'll snap it. On this one, I pretty much got it bang on first time on the right hand side door. On the left, you can see the gap, so this is what you're left with if you don't touch it. So again, we just grip it and just apply a little bit of pressure, hold, let the heat build up slowly. Very slow, we don't want to snap it. And just let it hold and stress itself till it bends to the shape we want. Repeat that on the back side, and then we can test fit it to fit in place and repeat as necessary. But we got quite lucky on this one. They tended to fit in very quickly. As you can see, we've got quite a nice fit there, pretty even fit all the way around, and the doors do work on this. The scissor action door is supposed to work. Whether it does is a completely different matter. We'll find it out near the end, but the door fit, not too bad at all. So pretty straightforward there. If you're not happy, you can always give it a little bit more manipulation. Just take your time, do a little bit at a time. Don't rush it, because the worst thing you can do is snap the plastic, because they're a very prominent area on the doors, and it's very obvious if there's a seam line in them as well. So like I say, decent fit there, quite happy with that, not too bad at all. The worst part in this kit was getting all the arches on. The arches are all separate, which is these parts. So we've got 2 for the front. On the original kit, there's 2 for the rear, but because this is the LP Koenig, we've got the side skirt and a slightly different wheel spat at the back. So this took a good couple of hours of test fitting, lining everything up, taping it all in place to make sure we got it all lined up perfectly. There are no indicator marks on the body. It's literal guesswork. I've got this part the wrong way around here, which I'm going to figure out. Like I say, the side skirts are extra on these kits, and they do look really good. So we need to line all this up on the front to the back, then get the front arch in, We've got a front lower bumper to put in as well. So we're going to line everything up, tape it all in place to dry fit it before we even think about committing to glue. So like I say, I had about 5.5 hours here. I reckon a good 2.5 hours was just test fitting, fettling these parts, cutting the arches to shape to get everything in line. So this front section fits in here. This one fits in not too bad. It's a little bit short where it attaches where the headlight, the side repeaters are. But that's just the way it is. These parts on the side, the front of the arch fits on just fine. The back, where it wouldn't have the side skirts there, where my finger is going to need cutting. So what we've done is we've got the arch in, we put the side skirt over the top, and we're just going to lightly score the skirt. I was going to use a pen, but we're going to get a bit of a error there with the width of the pen. I thought the easiest way of doing it is use the razor saw to mark it front to back very carefully, no real pressure, and then take it off and we can cut it. So the ultimate buffer doubles as a fantastic stand for cutting parts. It's very forgiving. So we've got it lined up. We've got the very fine edge of our JLC razor saw, or JLS if you're into the band, whatever you want to call it. And we just cut it off, grab one of our customizable 400 sanders, sand it flush. It's going to need a little bit of fettling this, as all these parts will need. So the key here is test fit, test fit, test fit. Move things around to get everything lined up perfect, tape it in place, and then we'll glue some strategic areas. So taking it back off, a little bit more of a sand. So we get it all lined up, and then once we're happy and everything's lined up, we'll tape it in place. Make sure the front's lined up. Obviously the top of the arch needs cleaning up from the sprue points, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But like I said, we're going to get it all in, all dry fitted, all taped in place to make sure everything lines up where we want it. And when we are, we're going to start to tack it on. We're going to use like my Tamiya extra thin plastic weld mix, which I made a video on not long ago on the channel. I'm just going to apply some glue in a few strategic places while the tape is on. Get those glued in place. We don't want to put loads of pressure on because we don't want all the molten plastic to come out. But we do need to make sure that it's glued in place. Now, we do need to add a wash to this later, and it does become a bit of a point of contention, a bit of an issue, because there's not real depth in all the panel lines. So we have a bit of a problem putting the wash on in places, but we kind of get through it all. Front bumper, again, we've had it all tacked in place with masking tape, and I'm literally working my way around the body shell, gluing it on, hold it for a few seconds, then move to the front. Not using tons of glue, but just enough to get the capillary reaction to work. Holding it, and if it needs clipping, we're just getting a bit of a light clamp with a closed peg on there to hold it in place. Again, once you're happy, you can glue the inside as well for a little bit of extra strength. And the beauty of this glue, and my compressor going off, is that it does dry pretty quick. It's nice and hot, so it does glue things really well. But it does give you a little bit of time just to move things around. So if you don't quite get something glued in place perfectly, you know you can come back and just move it in. And then again, on the side skirts, we just add a few spots in a few strategic places. We can get rid of our tape now and commit to gluing everything fully in place. So you can see a little bit of a gap at the back, so we're just going to pop a little bit of glue in and then just gently push it home and then work our way under the side at the back. Like I say, this was a good few hours work. To get this to primer stage, all in with everything, I reckon was about 4 hours work alone. It took quite a bit of work, a bit of fettling, a lot of test fitting, a little bit of sanding here and there, just to make sure I could get everything lined up as good as possible. And as you can see, we're just tacking that back piece on, hold it, chuck a clothes peg on. The clothes peg's good. They hold things, but they've not got a massive amount of spring to them, so they don't clamp things too tight. So good for holding things in place. And again, once you're happy everything's tacked in place, we can go around and fully glue all the seams until we're happy everything's glued in place. And just leave it to one side to dry. And obviously repeat on the other side. It's a bit laborious having to do things twice, but practice makes perfect. Second time around, it's a lot easier to do. Just be aware of your glue lines, getting glue on your fingers, touching things. So, yeah. But overall, not too bad. These Fujimi kits, I always go into these knowing these are going to be a challenge. And I think that's what I find fun about them. They're a nice enough build. They're a big scale without being too big. It's in between 24th and 12th. They are a challenge to build. They take a little bit of thinking and working things out. And I find them very, very rewarding to build. Very, very challenging in places. And you've also got the option for some detail as well. So, with that drying on one side, I'm going to go through with my super duper Faber-Castell highlighter I found in a drawer. Look at that. Look at the quality of that highlighter. Beautiful. And I'm marking off all the parts that I need to pay attention to either now or later down the line. So basically I'm marking anything that's coloured body colour to make sure it's either glued in place on the body, or I know later on down the line we'll need painting and clear coating. So I'm just going through. I'm also marking parts that I need to pay attention to later on. Like if you look at the door there in the centerpiece, we've got the actual door center of the window, which is going to be painted in black. So I've marked it for now just as a reminder to double check. So this isn't everything that's painted white. It's just everything I need to be aware of. Now, all the parts nicely dried. There's some body panels we need to remove. So these are the old arches. So we're just going to cut them with our Tamiya sprue cutters. Nothing very, no finesse about this at all. Just moving all the excess parts. Then we hit it with a UMP sander and smooth it all off. It's just, it sticks out a little bit underneath, and obviously we don't need it. Now, I'm hoping I've got my arches in the right place. I've measured everything. Everything seems to be quite central. I hope when we put the wheels on, we haven't got any wheels touching them or anything, but we're not going to do that till later. So yeah, a little bit of cleanup here, nothing too drastic. We're just moving plastic. Just make sure you're removing parts that need to be removed, and not something, you know, when you flip it around, you cut off the arch you've just glued in place, because that would be a bit of a nightmare to fix. The air intakes on top, these are handed. They're a little bit confusing. And the grills / radiators, wherever they are on top, are a bit of a strange fit. There's nothing else in the kit I can see that fits there, so we've left them off for now because they get painted black at a later stage. So for now, using our Tamiya Extra Thin glue mix to glue these in place. So just held them on, a little bit of pressure, and then run a nice bead of Tamiya Extra Thin around the edge. As you can see, I am wearing my Martini-inspired Citizen watch today. Very, very nice strap I got off Etsy a while back in the Martini colours. I've got one of the Gulf colours as well, and it's on one of my favourite Citizen automatic watches, my NY004. I do love the Martini colours, and yeah, it looks great on this watch. Not the biggest watch, looks a bit dwarfed on my wrist, but I love the autos. There's something just simplistic and just really nice about wearing an automatic watch. If you don't know what automatic means, it's basically a mechanical watch that winds itself via movement. I always find them very cool. Off on a tangent there a little bit, but got the old motorsport themed watch on today, so I just thought I'd give it a mention. Got these side pods that are going on here as well. So there's a little bit of seam at the front of these, and I contemplated should I spend the time filling it. Once I glued it all in place and sanded it, it wasn't really visible, so it wasn't much of an issue. So I just pushed it in, put some glue at the back, pushed it forward to get the old molten glue out, plastic out, and then we sand it off in a little bit, as you can see. Different spoiler with the Koenig. I think it's much prettier than the triangular shaped Countach one, the standard one. It's a prettier spoiler for sure. It's got some seams on the edge, so we're just going to clean those up with a 400 customizable sander. So just a bit of gentle sanding. So top tip of my videos, you can tell when things are filmed over different days. I've got a few watches. I'm not mad. I'm not changing a watch every scene, because I'm sure that's what some people think. I wear a different watch every day. So if you see a watch and it changes, it's the following day. So you can kind of get an indication of how long something's taken me to do. This has probably been done fully over 4 days, probably, from prep, prime, paint, decal to 2K. But yeah, good little indication of how long I've been working on things. Now the headlights, I contemplated having them working like I did on the 288, but it's a bit gimmicky. They're a bit of a pain to pop up because you've got to get your fingers underneath the luggage compartment. And I thought, you know what, we're just going to glue them shut. We're just going to not muck about. We'll glue them flush, glue them shut. So pop them in place, put the brackets in, run a bead of glue around them, and we're all good to go. Now, panel lines, I'm just going to widen that panel line. We put that arch on, repeat for the other side, and then we're going to go around and de-seam some of the parts and get rid of any flash areas, which there are a few wisps of around the interior, around the window frames, intakes and what have you. So we've just got a 400 customizable from Ultimate Modern Products in there. We get rid of any wisps of plastic or anything we don't want to be there. We're going to leave in the window support on the windscreen for now. That's going to be painted black later. So it's been left in there for strength for now. When we come to paint them black, we'll trim them off, sand them flush, and you'll never know they've been there. A lot of people ask why I leave them in, and it's purely for strength. So these intakes on the side, like I said, I weighed it up, should need filling, and because we used the hot glue and pushed it in, got some molten plastic out, we don't need to fill it. It's already filled itself. So some light sanding with our Ultimate Thinny Stick, and we'll make short work of that, no problem at all. Repeat that for the other side, and yeah, we're good to go. Cleaned up all and any seam lines, and then we can go round and remove the rest of the seam. So starting on the back, there's a seam running right along the top of this panel. So not the biggest seam, luckily, very, very quick and easy. So we've got a 240 thinny grey sponge here. I'm just going to take our time, carefully going around to remove the seam. Nice and easy to do, nothing too strenuous on this. Once everything was lined up, that was most of the work on this. It took a lot of preparation to get everything glued in place. And again, a few wisps of plastic in there. So we get another customizable 400 sander in there. And then we come back with our 240 sponge again to get rid of any glue marks. We can get right up to where we're glued and remove any excess glue marks. And at the same time, we're going to key and prep the body for paint. Nice and simple. We go around scuff, basically take the shine off all the body, any imperfections off there. As you can see, I'm going right up to the arches, and we get rid of any glue marks, any fingerprints, any residue. Standard prep for me. A lot of people say you don't need to do it with lacquers, but if a real body shop does it, whether they're spraying a metal body or a plastic bumper, I'm going to do it that way too, because basically we are spraying a miniature car body using car paints. So that's how I'm going to do it. A little bit of a seam on the back of each side as well, pretty easily dealt with. Like I say, quite a clean body, considering the kit is 35 years old. It's not too bad at all. Different watch, different day. See, there we go. So we've got a 240 sponge again, and we're going to take off the... sorry, it's a 220 sponge, isn't it? Take off the seam along the front arch, and then remove our 240 flat sander as well to scuff up the body. So quite easy clean up here, nothing too bad at all. Nice and simple. Just prep, better prep will do a good job. So the better you do now, the better finish you'll get at the end. So well worth spending the time doing this. Like I say, a good 20 minutes of video to get here, a good couple, I'd say 3-4 hours to get here. So time well spent in my opinion. Now I need to mount the parts for paint. And I did this on the 959. I've cut off some longer lengths of sprue off the kit. We're going to put it in an inconspicuous area inside, and we're going to glue the sprue to the plastic. So we're going to glue plastic to plastic. We'll then make a point on the end of the sprue once it's dry, and we've got a perfect stand for spraying the parts. So we're going to do this for each and every part that we can. Luckily, the body shell will fit on our Tamiya stand, so no dramas there. So just pop it in place, add some Tamiya extra thin, hold it for a little bit, let it do its job, and then leave it for a few hours. It'll be nicely dry, and you can handle it and move things around as you go. So I've widened the Tamiya stand. It fits perfectly on the body, like so. Unfortunately, the body does move around a little bit, so to rectify that, I cut off some scrap sprue and CA glued it in place. And the reason I CA glued it is it will snap off cleanly at the end, and we can sand up any residue later on. We've gone around and cleaned all the seams with our toothbrush to get rid of any sand and dust, and now I've got a nice clean piece of kitchen paper with some Ultimate Modern Products airbrush cleaner on, and we're going to go around and decontaminate all the surface in preparation for primer. So we go around, wipe off any fingerprints, any residue, any contaminants, anything at all, because your fingers are one of the worst things you can put on your model. I've had it before using water-based paints where a fingerprint just miraculously appeared in the worst possible place. So this kind of prep is well worth doing. It's not overkill at all. So I do with every single kit if you follow my builds, and it's time spent doing. Head on over to www.umpretail.com and help support mine and Lee's business, because without Ultimate Modeling Products, there would not be any international scale modeler, and all the videos we put out there, and the Facebook page, and the forum we run. We stock loads and loads of modeling products, including all our own products of our Apex airbrush, our pigments, primers, sanders, thinner and cleaner tools, our wonderful storage system, polish system, and weathering washes. We also sell modeling tools, paints, model kits, glue, solutions, fillers, weathering products, aftermarket, and of course, international scale modeler merchandise and gift cards. And all orders made before 12 midday get next day delivery in the UK, and international orders are shipped within 48 hours. So, some Tamiya spray can primer, decanted, off gas for 24 hours, thinned about 60% with Tamiya lacquer thinner with retarder. We're through the 0.35 apex at about 18 psi, and we're going to put 3 or 4 coats down, a couple of light coats to begin with, building it up as we go through the build. So, good primer, the Tamiya primer, definitely one of my favourites, up there with the Ultimate primer. I am moving over more to lacquers these days. And it does cover well, but it doesn't go far at all. It really doesn't. The UMP is a lot cheaper. It lasts a lot longer. But I'm just preferring lacquers at the minute. Everything I spray now is lacquer. So it's easy to do. So the first pass on this, we're going side to side. Now we're going to go up and down and pass everywhere. And then we'll go around, make sure we're getting all those vents, all the skirts, all the recesses. We're not putting on too thick here. I always tend to put 2 lighter coats down, then a slightly heavier third coat, followed by a 4th wetter coat. That way we get the self-leveling property of the primer, and it does its job for the micro scratches and imperfections. And yeah, looking good. Looks good in white. As soon as I bought this kit, like I said, I think I bought this last year, at the end of the year, and just a white box art. I thought I've got to do it white. But I didn't want to do it just in plain white, so we're going to spray it a slightly different colour. So I think this is coming up to our last coat now. I'm just putting it down a little bit wetter now. I haven't got my lid on my airbrush. I'm being a very, very naughty boy. But yeah, a bit of careful spraying and we'll be okay. Because if I drip paint now, it's going to go on the body. So I should have my colour cup on. Should know better. But as you can see, white really does suit the Lamborghini. I was never a big fan of the Lamborghini in my youth. I always preferred the Ferraris and things. I know the Countach was a bedroom poster for a lot of people. For me, it wasn't. I only really started liking Lamborghinis when they brought the Diablo out. And I do have a Diablo, and I love the anniversary in the dirty purple, which I do have the colour of. So we'll see that at some point on the channel. But I appreciate the Countach from what it is. And if you watch things like Harry's Garage, Harry's got one, and although these are meant to be a bit of a nightmare to drive, he actually speaks of it quite highly, to be honest. But yeah, definitely the later incarnations were nicer than the earlier cars, that is for sure. So the body shell's done. We're doing exactly the same on all the body panels, and we've got to be careful. These are a bit fiddly to paint, and obviously if you're painting smaller parts, you need to be aware that you don't put too much paint down, and anything landing on it, get it off before you put paint on if you can. White's a bit of a nightmare because everything shows on it. It's one of those things. So, colour. I've gone for Tamiya TS45, which is a pearl white. I've used this colour before when I did Tamiya's 6 scale Africa Twin, and it's a lovely colour. So this was decanted, left overnight, thinned about 60% with Tamiya lacquer thinner with retarder, and we're through the 0.35 apex, 18 psi again. And again, I'm going to put about 4 or 5 coats on. I'm going to put a couple of light coats down to begin with, just to build it up slow. On white, you've got to be careful you don't get runs. Now, because this is glossy, and the primer's not, it's easier to get runs, in my opinion. I think the gloss paint's a bit harder to spray. So, put your first coats down, not as wet. Aim to get it all, get coverage, rather than gloss. So make sure you're getting all those little recesses, all the angles, everywhere you can, and just take your time building it up. And then you can get progressively wetter as you come in with the subsequent coats. So it's going to build it up over time. It's a lovely colour. I've got some pictures of this outside when it's painted, and some pictures of it inside as well. And it's a very nice colour. I think it's a little bit different than just painting it white, because that can be a little bit boring. I think the pearl white should look good on it. I hope it does. It's one of my favourite colours I've sprayed over the years. Africa Twin is a beautiful looking bike in pearl white. Like I say, just pay attention to all those little crevices, recessed areas, and we'll pop a coat on it, put it to one side to dry for 10-15 minutes, and then come back, go on alternating passes. So we're going left to right on this, we'll go up and down on the next ones, and so on. And of course, we're painting all the other parts off camera as well. Paint all your parts together, make sure they get equal coat and equal coverage, which is why I like to stick as many things on the car as I possibly can. Just checking for coverage there, we're covered quite well. 10-15 minutes later, just having a little look. We're looking good. Colour's looking really nice. As you can see, we've got the can there on the bench. I think I had to decant a little bit more paint. This car uses a surprising amount of paint. I think it's because of all the separate panels and all the different areas and recesses. And as you see, I'm just checking it to make sure I've got everywhere covered. And it's looking good so far. It's a nice colour. This is one of those colours that's going to come alive under daylight. So all the paint done, as you can see there, we're all nicely painted. We're going to do our decal, and that's our decal call out. This is the paint the next day. It's dried overnight, beautiful pearl white. And we're going to go about 6 decals to put in place. A couple of Koenig logos, Ferrari emblems, a couple of badges on the side and one on the back. Now, always a worrying case to do 34-year-old decals, even more so when they're Fujimi decals, if you're familiar with Fujimi decals. But the old ones I've used lately, they've all seemed to have gone down pretty well. The 959 Porsche, the 288, have all gone down okay. Now, when I put these in the hot water, they did go a bit of a funny texture, and I was like, uh-oh, they've gone wrong. But when I put it on the white, they look just fine. It's just a gold colour on the decal. So, standard decal in practice, and I do have a video planned to release on decaling, showcasing the ultimate decal solutions in a more concise, shorter video, because I have videos out there, but they're a little bit long, so I'm going to redo them. It's a case just get standard decal in practice, get them in place, get them lined up, get the moisture out from behind them, hit them with some ultimate decal solutions, and leave them to dry, and we're all good to go. So pretty standard, nothing to really show, just a couple of badges. We also need to paint the back Countach Lamborghini logos in some silver. I didn't get it on camera. I did exactly the same way I think I did the 288, where I did it by hand using the magnifier and some Vallejo silver. I just very carefully hand painted it. So we've got a logo on the back, just making sure it's central, just measuring each side. And my eye's not bad. It was off by about 0.5 mil. So I've got a good eye for centering things. So we just budge it over a little bit. So not the biggest decaling session, but nerve-wracking nonetheless, because you never know how decals of this age are going to go. The Koenig ones on the side and this one on the back, not the most important, but the Lamborghini logos were, because I don't have any replacements in this scale. Once you're happy it's in place, hit it with some decal solution. We'll start with the normal Ultimate here, but I found it needed the strong to get them to set in place. On the bonnet, we've got the Lamborghini logo, which sits on a raised area on the bonnet or luggage compartment cover that looks like the emblem itself. So once you get it on, hit it with some strong UMP decal solution straight away this time. Different day, different watch. We can let that set and settle into all the crevices. Now, this was probably one of the worst struggles I had on this. Because of the way the panels have been glued on, the arches and that, there's no definitive line on some of the parts. So we're putting our panel line wash on. The reason I did this is, looking at the Countaches, it looks from the factory, any of these arches have some sort of black sealant in them. And it's very, very prominent when you look at pictures, like totally obvious that it's there. And when I looked at the model without it, it looked odd. It looked a bit toy-like and a bit bland. So I thought, I'm going to have to do this. Now, on 90% of the body, it went on just fine because the panel line was deep enough that I could put the wash in, let it dry and remove it in the standard way. In other places, it was pulling the wash off too much. Like on this back part here, as you can see as I run it over, it's pulling all the wash out. So I had to keep hitting it. I think I hit some of these parts 4 or 5 times and then be a lot less aggressive with the cotton bud. Now, sadly, some areas it hasn't taken great, and there was literally nothing I could do. So this was the best job I did, and I settled for it. As you can see, we're out in the sun. You can see the lovely pearl flakes. A little bit oversized, but this is a thing you're going to get with model cars. The paints aren't necessarily scaled. But I think it's a nice colour, different than just boring white. It gets a bit more white under artificial lighting. But I think it looks a bit better than just standard white. It's a nice colour. The spray job's gone down well. The only thing letting it down is the panel line wash in places. But I spent a good amount of time trying to rectify it, and this was the best I could do. At the end of the day, you can only do your best job. And if that's not good enough, well, what is at the end of the day? Body panels all fit on. The arches look good. Everything's in place. We're all mocked up there. And we are now ready for 2K clear. So safety equipment, I've got nitrile gloves. I've got the sleeve for my left arm, which is an old jumper. Funny enough, I cut off. So this is the arm that gets sprayed. So I always make sure it's doubly covered. I put 2 gloves on the left hand because nitrile is probably the most resistant to 2K. So I double up the glove on the left hand because that's the one that gets covered in 2K. Single glove on the left, on the right. And we've got a full face respirator there. Our extractor's on. We've got ventilation in the room, and we're good to go. Okay, so we're using our standard Gravity Colours 2K mix here. This is a 3-to-1-to-1 mix. So that means for every 3 parts of clear, use 1 part of hardener and 1 part of thinner. So today we're going to use 12mm of clear. It's a bigger body. We'll use 4mm of hardener. Mix that together to get the chemical process, reaction underway. So using a nice clean pipette, we're adding 4mm of hardener to the 12mm of clear. Like so, carefully measured. Make sure the pipette's completely empty because it will hold a little bit of the hardener. Pop your lid back on, get these out the way from each other separately. Then use the pipette that we put this in. Make sure it's completely empty, like I say. You'd be surprised what it holds. It can hold quite a bit. And then we give this a good mix. That gets the chemical reaction underway. Like so. And then we're going to throw this away. Do not reuse these pipettes. Do not be putting this one into the thinner bottle or you will basically ruin your thinner. You'll come back next time, it'll all crystallized and ruined. So we get everything out of that again. Make sure it's completely empty. And then we'll throw that to one side out of the way. And then we grab a fresh pipette and we're going to add 4mm of thinner in there. And mix that together as well. And that's our 3-to-1-to-1 mix of Gravity. Definitely my favourite 2K clear at the minute. I'm on a few issues at the minute. I can't seem to get my 2K perfect. I think I'm overthinking things a little bit. I have this problem every now and then. And 2K can be quite finicky. Some days you get a beautiful, perfect job out the gun. Other days you get a bit of orange peel, like we did on the Audi. But that was down to the heat, I think, of the dehydrator. On this one, I've got a couple of fish eyes. So I must have had a contaminant somewhere. And I'm not 100% where. Whether it was in the airbrush, might be more of the pipette, I don't know. But it is what it is. We dealt with it. We got past it. We can rectify it later when we sand and flat it. Popping it for our 190 micron paint strainer. I'm assured you don't need to do it, but I always do it just as a matter of course. Better be safe than sorry. We've got a Tamiya anti-static brush. We're going all around the model just to remove any dust that's landed on there, and the anti-static properties should hopefully prevent any more from landing. Dust is the true enemy of 2K. It's a nightmare, but it is what it is. Keep your room as clean as possible. Mine's hoovered the night before. The spray booth is completely stripped down the night before, all fresh tissue, a fresh filter, it's fully wiped over, and everything that isn't required in there is taken out. But I still get dust. It's just one of those things that's inevitable. It's so sticky, this substance, that it's going to attract dust. So tack coat down first. And this is something I want to play with next time. I've had good clear coats just by putting a decent tack coat down and a single wet coat. So it's something I'm going to try next time. One of my best paint jobs was on the NSX we did, the red one, the new one. And it's because I forgot I was doing the second coat. I thought it was on the third, so I applied the second coat really thick. And it is one of the best 2K jobs I've done. So it's something we're going to try next time. As long as you're confident you're not going to get any runs, then you can get away with it just fine. But on this, we're just going for a tack coat. So the idea of the tack coat is it's a thinnish coat of this. We're not going for gloss on this. We're going for coverage again. This will flash off over 10 minutes. It will become unbelievably sticky. If you've used 2K, you'll know exactly what I mean. And then for any coats that go on next, it gives a nice base for those to stick to and should reduce the risk of runs. Obviously, if you hose this on, you will still get a run, so take your time. As you can see, there's our badges on the back we hand painted in silver as well. And then obviously you repeat this on all the other components as well. The doors, making sure we get the edges, the inner parts as well. One thing I should have done was mask off those door hinges because they've got 2K on now. They won't fit into their holes. So we're going to have to sand those back later. Never even give it a thought until after a 2K'd. But we can fix that, no problem at all. So like I said, we're not going for coverage. Sorry, we're not going for gloss. We're going for coverage. Just trying to get a nice, even coat of clear all the way around. This being a big model, having all these recesses and angles and parts, we did use quite a lot of 2K. And I did have to mix a little bit more at the end. Just a little bit to do it. You're going to say I'm using too much out there. But hey, it is what it is. Once we're done, body shell's covered up. Panels are covered up. We refill the airbrush with 2K, so it's full again. 10 minutes later, we're back, and we're going to put our first wet coat down on this. Now, I normally show the whole process. We're running out of time today with the prep on the body taking a lot longer than usual. I had to cut the process down a bit. So this is our first wet coat. So as you can see, a bit more clear on this time. Again, we're not trying to cover it in one go. We're not trying to get a full gloss. We're just trying to get a decent gloss coat down on this. Then we can leave it for another 10 minutes and come back and put our third and final wet coat down. So take your time, be careful. It's very easy on white to put too much down and end up with runs. Luckily on this we didn't get a single run. We did get a little bit of dust here and there. Like I said, I got a few fish eyes, which is a contaminant leaving a circle in spots. Luckily it was only in one spot in the end. It seemed to self-level itself out. But it is there, but it's not hardly visible, and I think I can sand most of it out. So, like I said, we're just going to go around every recess, which is what I think uses so much 2K on these bodies. A lot of different angles, vents, all kinds of things to paint. It does take time. One thing I will say about the 2K is it's a very hazardous component to use. Make sure you read up on it, check all the safety precautions. Make sure you've got good gloves, or your skin's covered, you've got a very good respirator, a good extractor, you're in your own room, you're not in a room with your family, either now or when it's off-gassing. It's not to be taken like this stuff at all. And a lot of people don't report this about using it. It's a very hazardous material, so it can have certain health implications. So I take as much benefit as I can. I've got the full face respirator that cost me a lot of money. I've got a very good extractor. I've got a window open, so fresh air is pulled in from outside and back out the booth, so it does evacuate the room a lot quicker. And once it's finished doing, we cover it up and leave the room. If you're happy, leave the room for 10 minutes while off gases, and when it's done, leave the room for at least an hour or two to make sure off gases. Otherwise, you're sat there the entire time breathing in those fumes, which isn't good for you at all. So yeah, pay attention to what you're doing. So I filled up our colour cup here with more 2K. I'm going to pop the lid back on. So I always fill the colour cup up and then give it a little bit of a stir when I come back to do our final coat. But again, this will be left for 10 minutes to off gas. So leave the room, or if you've got your respirator on and you're happy, move away from the bench. And then come back. But you can see my hand, how much 2K is on there. You don't want this on your skin or getting in your eyes, because it will absorb itself into your body. So please be aware of the safety precautions and the implications. So as you can see, if you look at the roof of this now, we have got a gloss coat on there. It is looking good, but it's not fully clear gloss. So this is where we're going to come in with our third and final pass. So I would say this is a little bit lighter than the second pass, because we're just trying to get it down. And what I like to do is work on one side, go to the other, work all the way around, then come back where you started and have a look. The finish you have when you're done airbrushing is near enough what it will dry like. It may self-level a touch more, but you want it to look like glass at this stage. So it's a fine line between getting that beautiful gloss coat and getting too much down that you'll only get to know by experience. So practice makes perfect. I still screw things up. There's a lot of variables in this. Some days you'll get dust, some days you won't. Some days you'll get a beautiful finish out of the gun. Some days you'll get a run. It's just one of those things, and practice makes perfect. So take your time. You can always add more. That's the way I look at it with 2K. Although it says 3 coats, you don't have to do 3. You can leave for another 5 minutes and put another light coat on. So if you look at it thinking, there's a little bit of orange peel there, and you don't want to put it down to make it look too thick, you can always leave it a minute, see if it self-levels itself, and then come back and add a touch more. But I've sprayed hundreds of cars now, and I'm getting to know the limits of where I can go and how far I can push it. So there we go, we got a nice gloss coat down now. And here we go at the end, just having a little look, using the light to get the reflection. Looking for any imperfections anywhere that needs it, just give it another light go over. Make sure you get all the A-pillars, all those recesses inside the vents. Underneath an area that's quite often missed by myself as well, along the sills and the back bumper. Like I say, just angle the light to look for imperfections. Just be aware of where you're waving the model around as well, that you don't get any fluff in there from the filter of the spray booth, or drop it on the tissue, because trust me, it is literally the worst thing you can do. Hence why we securely mounted it with the stand. And again, just looking round for any flaws. All looking good. There we go, quick blast over the front bumper. Pretty happy with that, so that can go back in its box. Now with the size of these bodies, it only just fits in my box. So I've got this box marked with the way I know it fits in. Because like I say, when you put your lid on, you don't want it touching this at all. As you can see, it's a lot tighter squeeze than a 24th body, but it fits in well. And then our final coat on all the separate body panels. And again, same story as always, smaller parts, very easy to overspray. So take your time. Just like I say, you're better off doing a less than perfect gloss coat. Put it down for 5 minutes, come back, have a look. And it hasn't quite self-leveled out. The idea of 2K is it's thick. It self-levels. If it hasn't done that, give it a light coat again. Leave it 5 minutes, double check, and so on. More importantly, when handling small parts like this, make sure they are securely mounted. Make sure where you're popping them in to stand up, they're away from each other. You don't want them touching, because they will stick to each other and literally destroy themselves. All your hard work. Make sure everything is stood up separately and securely if you're moving things around. And like I say, be very careful with the thickness of the 2K you're popping down. And again, use the light to angle to have a look at everything. So once I'm done, I pop it in its box for 5 minutes, leave it alone, and then come back, just have a little look how it's doing, because like I say, how it looks here now is how it's going to dry. Almost exactly how it's going to go. We've got a good clear coat, no runs, we've got a few spots of dust. The roof is a bit ripply, and I don't think it's a 2K, I think it's the plastic. I think it's just the nature of Fujimi kits have their flaws in places. Everything else is beautiful, so we'll pop our lid back on very carefully. A quick look at all our separate parts, and they're looking good as well. The pearl white's looking very, very pretty now it's been cleared. And again, place those in there nice and carefully and pop our lid on. And then I'm going to leave the room, go in the house, chill out for a couple of hours while this off gas is out the way. Like I say, when you put it in your box, make sure nothing touches. It's very easy to do. Just make sure I haven't hit anything there. And I haven't. And then a couple of hours later, as you can see, the secret of what is underneath the tissue on my bench is a lot of spilled paint. We're just having a look around. So this is dust dry now. It's not touch dry, but it's dust dry, and we've got a pretty decent clear coat. I'm quite happy with that all around. It looks nice and glossy. We've got some nice depth without looking too thick, but we've also got plenty on there that we can flat and polish up when it's cured. So looking very good. It's really brought the pearl white alive. I'm glad I did it the pearl and not a boring colour. As you can see, a little bit of imperfections in the roof. I don't think it's the clear. The clear is self-leveled beautifully. I think it is literally the plastic. So yeah, looking good with that. Happy with that. So we can leave that to dry. And I'm going to get some pictures of it as well. As you can see, nice colour. A little bit more interesting than just white. I think the pearl white adds a little bit to the build. Makes it look a little bit more special. Because it was a special edition Lamborghini after all. And yeah, happy with that. Once we get that flatted and polished, it's going to look pretty decent. So there we go. There's part one of our Lamborghini Koenig Countach done. Yeah, there we go. So happy with that. It's come out pretty well. Obviously, probably the worst things about it is that panel line wash. It was a bit intermittent in places because of the actual type of gap we had on the arches. But I did the best I could. As I said in the video, all you can do is try your best, and that's what we got. So clear coats turned out well. We've got a bit of work to do, a bit of dust to remove here and there. But I'm glad I did it in the Pearl TS45. It's a nice colour. I'm glad I did that rather than just white, because I think it's going to be a bit more of an interesting looking build. So hopefully you might glean some information from that. If you did, leave a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts. I've got to think of an interior colour. So happy to hear, sorry, I've got itchy nose, everyone's interior colour thoughts. I'm thinking like a Bordeaux red, dark Bordeaux red, or brown, like a saddle brown, got saddle tan. I've got a few different colours over there. But I think the red would look good against the white. So I'm not sure yet. We'll see how we get on with that one. I think it'd be a nice contrast though. Nice bright maroon Bordeaux red inside. So let me know your thoughts on that one. We're not going to get to that bit just yet. We're going to do the engine next, which is always a fun part on these builds. It gives you an excuse for metallizers and a bit of maybe even scratch building. Don't know. The engines aren't too bad out the box, to be honest. I'm probably going to see quite a lot of this. So we'll have a look. We'll see what we've got. And part 2 will be up in the near future. I'm going to jump back to the Audi. We're going to work on the Quattro's running gear next, I think, as well, before we come back to this one. And I've not forgotten about the Mustang, the F51, or the Games Workshop Night either. They are there. They're long-term projects. We'll get to those as we do. So don't be worrying about that. As always, if you want to support the channel, my content, my work, you can Patreon me. There's a link in the description down below. And there's also a PayPal me link as well. Any donations are greatly received, because as I always say, without banging on about it too much, without those donations, I don't think I'll be able to spend the time doing these videos. And hopefully you noticed the video content has increased quite a lot across the board. I've got loads of videos to come, including one we mentioned, sneak peek at the end of the video. I was asked by a patron and a few of you to do an all spray can build. And that's what I've chose as a subject. So that will be coming up soon. And I might even open it up as a buddy build if anyone wants to join in with me. So no airbrush used whatsoever. All spray cans and hand painted. It'd be an interesting build to see. The clear coat is going to be interesting. That is for sure. But again, all we can do is try our best and see what we get. Be good fun. That is for sure. So yes, there we go. If you'd like to support the channel, the option's there. If you've got any comments, pop them down below. Like I say, I do read all your comments and appreciate everyone that takes the time to leave a comment. I heart everyone and try and answer as many questions as I can. Make sure you sub to the channel, give a thumbs up, and hit that bell notification as well to get notified of all our latest videos. And of course, the obligatory check out International Scale Modeler Facebook page and forum, umpretail.com, my Paul ISM Facebook page where all my personal modelling work is shared. Live at the Bench page, the Off Air Hangout group, and the ISM GB page as well. And of course, Ultimate Modern Products, can't remember if I mentioned that or not. We can get a lot of the products I use in my videos. And speaking of that, there's a big list of all the products I use in the description down below that lists all the tools I use and everything is there, as well as links to everything I've just mentioned as well. Thanks for watching today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. I will catch you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.